We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Sunday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Listen, I know I say it every episode this time of year, but certainly every Sunday morning. When I tell you we got an insane episode of the Aaron Torres Pod lined up for you, we have an insane episode lined up for you. And oh, by the way, on top of everything else, we're on Napier Watch and Norvell Watch. Billy Napier, we'll see if anything happens over the course of the day today. And oh, by the way, Mike Norvell now all of a sudden could very much be on the hot seat, according to Pete Nakos. But until then, we've got ourselves a jam-packed show. We're going to go ahead and open Alabama. I think Alabama's the best team in college football right now. I know what the rankings say. I respect Ohio State. 4th straight win over a ranked opponent. They may be the best team in the country. From there, we will get to some negatives. Arch Manning is not good, and I think it's officially now time, like, we have to talk about a future of Texas football without Arch Manning. They struggle to beat Kentucky on the road. I know Kentucky fans are frustrated, but it is an Arch Manning conversation. Speaking of struggling, LSU loses to Vandy. I know Vandy's good, but guess what? It is bad news for Brian Kelly. I don't think he ever will be the guy, so we'll discuss that. Hugh Freeze, another loss. I've been a Hugh Freeze defender, but they're a disaster. So Brian Kelly, hot seat watch. Hugh Freeze, hot seat watch. And then from there, we'll just get to the rest of a busy weekend. Georgia, great win. Got to give them credit. Miami loses. Texas Tech loses. Florida State, as we just discussed. And oh, by the way, BYU, best story in college football, 18-2 since the start of last season. I don't think anybody realizes it. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. We are closing in on 63,000 subscribers. I think we're going to get there by the middle of this week, but we cannot do it without your support. If you're not subscribed, make sure to do so. Show a friend, tag a friend, let a friend know about the show if they love college football, college basketball. By the way, college hoops is coming. We'll have plenty of hoops here over the next couple weeks as well. Also, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And as you see in the live chat, my Fox Sports radio show, we were on air till 2 a.m. Eastern time last night. You want to do your boy a favor, just go ahead and download that episode. Let those Fox Sports radio bosses know that Torres is bringing in the downloads. Also, before we get started, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres Pod, SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. So this is so cool. I've had so many of you over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks reach out and say, Torres, I've used the SeatGeek app. I've used the promo. Thank you for your support. Had an Indiana fan reach out to me. They have already purchased tickets to the Big Ten championship game. I had a buddy buy UConn hockey tickets. We had Paul in the chat buy Texas A&M Florida tickets a few days ago. So this is what you need to know. SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app, 28 million downloads. But what I love about SeatGeek is 2 things. One, they take care of their customers, right? Every ticket rated 1 through 10, they let you know if it's a good ticket, if it's a bad ticket. A green dot means go ahead and purchase that bad boy. Red dot means you probably want to stay away. But I think as importantly, it's what I just said. They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. So by now, you know we have a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres Podcast. As I've said, so many of you have taken advantage of it. It is the SeatGeek app. If you use promo code Torres at checkout, you get $20 off your first purchase. $20 off your first purchase. Like I said, we have Indiana fans already buying tickets to the Big Ten championship game. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, we cannot thank SeatGeek enough for their support. Speaking of support, it is a busy Sunday morning in the world of college football. There is no more time to waste. Let's get to the topic of the day. Listen, we're going to have a lot of negative on the show here over the next couple, probably hour or so. We're going to talk Brian Kelly hot seat. We're going to talk Hugh Freeze hot seat. We're going to talk Arch Manning, maybe just not being a FBS quarterback. But we have to start with the positive. And I want to be glasses half full here on a Sunday. So let's start in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And just what I think is quickly becoming one of the best stories in all of college football. Alabama, for the fourth straight week, faced a top 25 opponent. And for the fourth straight week, they got a win. Third Saturday in October, final score 37-20 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I'm just going to say it. I think right now this is the best team in college football. That's no disrespect to Ohio State. That's no disrespect to Indiana. And I saw a shocking stat, in my opinion, that I think largely backs it up. Before we get to all the shocking stats of the weekend, let's just start with the game itself. And listen, you know how we operate here on Sunday mornings. We're not going to go game by game, minute by minute. And in the third quarter, this happened. And in the second quarter, this happened. That's not how we operate. This play came down to a few big plays, but like most big plays since week one against Florida State, which feels like a lifetime ago at this point, most of the big plays all went in Alabama's favor. And the big play, we all know what it is. It is a play that I think Tennessee fans are going to be pulling their hair out about this one for years, quite literally the final play before halftime. Okay, so Alabama, if you were not watching it or if you had Kentucky, Texas on or Notre Dame, USC or whatever, Alabama was up 9-7 as the clock was running down in the first half. Tennessee uses a huge drive the back half of the second quarter. I believe it was about a 7.5 minute drive. They get to the goal line with 9 seconds to go, and they can kick a field goal to go up 10-9 going into halftime. With 9 seconds left, Josh Heupel decides to run one more play to try to get into the end zone. They had no timeouts. And what was interesting about it was even as Tennessee was walking to the ball, to the line of scrimmage, even as they were walking up to the line of scrimmage, Greg McElroy and Sean McDonough, who were on the call, were like, oh, so I guess they're going to try to throw a pass here before the end of the half. Again, the insinuation being 9 seconds left, no timeouts. You can't run the ball because if you don't get in the end zone, you're not going to have time to kick a field goal. So they're lining up for a pass. They drop back. Joey Aguilar throws to his right. Zabian Brown jumps in. Zabian Brown takes it 99 yards, pick six for a touchdown. 16-7 Alabama. It would have been, or 16-7 Alabama. It would have been 10-9 Alabama if Tennessee had just lined up for a field goal. Greg McElroy called it out in real time. Booger McFarland called it out on the halftime show, and it was a disastrous play for Tennessee and ultimately one that they never really recovered from over the course of the back half of the game. And so as we talk about the rest of the game, listen, I'll say this, is that I know that Tennessee fans are going to blame Josh Heupel and blame this. And listen, the decision-making, I think, for sure in that final 10 seconds was not great. You probably just line up, kick the field goal, whatever, go up 10-9 at the half on the road, take it for what it is. But what's also true, listen, it's kind of like the Auburn-Georgia thing from last weekend. You go back to Auburn-Georgia last week, we can talk about the refs this, the refs that, whatever. Auburn was scoreless the rest of the game after that play on the goal line. And with Tennessee-Alabama, yes, we can talk about the fact that it was probably poor play calling from Josh Heupel. It doesn't change the fact that over the course of 60 minutes, Alabama was the better team and Alabama was the deserving winner. 37-20, as I said, is the final score. Ty Simpson, another great game for him. 19 of 29 passing, 253 yards. With that, couple things stand out. First of all, Alabama right now is on a roll. And Alabama, as I said, I believe is the best team in college football right now. And I want to share really a stat, but it's really more than one stat that justifies why I feel the way that I do. With their win last night, it was Alabama's fourth straight win over a ranked opponent, okay? Beat Georgia on the road. Come home, beat Vandy. Beat Missouri on the road. Come home, beat Tennessee. But it's not only that, it's their fourth straight win over a ranked opponent, but how about this? Matt, if you have that tweet, I would love to see it. They became, according to Chuck Dunlap, who I believe used to work for the SEC office, Alabama just became the first team in SEC history to win 4 straight games without a bye at any point. So 4 straight games against 4 straight ranked opponents without a bye. They became the first ever team in college football, or in SEC history, to do that. I assume it's probably college football history as well. First team in SEC history to ever beat 4 straight teams, all ranked without a bye during that stretch. And so to me, and by the way, let me also say this about that stat. I think what also is impressive is this. Listen, we can talk about SEC bias, this, that, the other thing. I think there are teams in the top 25 that aren't very good. Texas is 5-2. I don't think they're very good. LSU, we'll see if they're ranked come Sunday when the new AP poll comes out. Those 4 teams that Alabama has beaten are totally legit. Okay, so Georgia, 6-1 right now. Vandy, 6-1 right now. Missouri, 6-1 right now. And Tennessee, by the way, they are 5-2. Their only loss was to Georgia outside of Alabama. So what's incredible about those stats, it's not just that they've beaten 4 ranked teams. Those are 4 legitimate top 25 teams. They're not these fake SEC top 25 teams that we see sometimes. Those 4 teams are a combined 23-1 in games against everyone other than Alabama. And to me, as I said, I think it proves 2 things. 1, Alabama to me is the best team in college football. 2, I think Kalen DeBoer is doing as good of a coaching job as anyone in college football right now. As far as being the best team in college football, let me say this. I know we'll have Ohio State fans see this video, maybe even Indiana fans see this video, maybe Oregon. There are teams that you can justifiably say are the best team in college football, and I think most people would say Ohio State deserves that spot. I am not here to tear down Ohio State. Ohio State is putting up historic defensive numbers. I think the stat that I saw was fewest points allowed through 7 games since the 1993 Florida State Seminoles. So Ohio State's incredible. They deserve the number 1 ranking. They have not taken a loss. You also look at that schedule, like what is the most impressive win there? Probably maybe Texas. Well, Texas should have lost to Kentucky on Saturday. That's just a fact. Washington, good team on the road, tough environment. Washington looked very good at Michigan on Saturday. And so I don't want to diminish what Ohio State has done, but I think we also have to acknowledge the schedule hasn't been that tough. And let's take it a step further. You know, Alabama has just played 4 straight ranked opponents right now in the last 4 weeks, with more to come. Oklahoma and LSU still on the schedule. Ohio State, and it's a little bit of bad luck because Penn State is just awful. But Ohio State has faced 1 team currently in the top 25, a second team in Illinois that was ranked when they played them. They might not face a ranked team the rest of the year. Now, I do think Michigan will probably be ranked by the time that they play them. But this is not a tear down Ohio State. It is celebrate what Alabama has done. Same thing with Indiana. Everybody knows I'm a Coach Sig guy. Nobody loves a good Sig like Torres does, okay? Not that kind of Sig, just Coach Sig. But the point is, you can't compare resumes right now, and we don't have to do the who. It doesn't matter what the resume is, but the resume does matter. And I think when we're just talking about who is the best team right now, to me, it is Alabama. Beyond that, let me also say this. I think you can legitimately say Kalen DeBoer is doing the best coaching job of anybody in college football right now. And I know that sounds crazy, okay? But I think all context matters when I say something like that over the course of the season. Listen, we can go back to that Florida State game. Again, with the way that Florida State is playing, I think you could, whatever. It was certainly it's certainly the weirdest result that we've had this season. Maybe it's going to end up being one of the more weird results that we've seen in decades. I don't know. But it doesn't change the fact that that game did happen. And it doesn't change the fact that the conversations that we had about Kalen DeBoer at that time were real. And I very much will acknowledge that I was one that was very critical of Kalen DeBoer. What was the stat at the time? He was 9-5 overall. 4 losses to unranked teams. I think Nick Saban had 4 losses to unranked teams over like a 15-year period. You go to Florida State after an offseason saying things would be different. And so I bring it up because the conversations we had about Kalen DeBoer that first week in September were completely justifiable. I also think that's what makes this so incredible, is that, one, just that the turnaround has happened. Like, I think it would have been very easy for him to lose that locker room, for guys to just be checked out. I came to play for somebody else. I didn't want to play for this guy in the first place. He doesn't know what he's doing. My career's on the line. And it would have been easy for that entire roster to check out. But beyond that, I think the other part of it is he kept them together, but he also kept them together during one of the most insane stretches that we will see in college football this year. And listen, I'm not like Mr. SEC apologist and every team is great. No. But we do have to acknowledge that the 4 teams that they have played over the last 4 weeks are all very good teams. Georgia, clearly a very good team, trending towards another potential SEC SEC championship game and playoff berth. Maybe they'll play Alabama. Missouri, 6-1. Vandy, off to maybe their best season that we've seen, maybe ever, frankly. Tennessee's very good. And so these are really legitimate teams. And so it'd be one thing if Kalen DeBoer kept that locker room together and the schedule, no disrespect, but it's just the truth. If it was, Kentucky and it was whoever, it was one of these Big Ten schedules where you get Purdue and Rutgers and whoever. He kept that locker room together during one of the toughest stretches any team in college football will face all year, if not the toughest stretch. 4 straight ranked wins, 4 straight ranked opponents, and they keep winning games, and they just keep getting better every single week. I think that's the crazy part, is the schedule is still tough, but it sort of gets more manageable from here. At South Carolina next week, I know people will say it's never easy to win on the road in the SEC. South Carolina is not very good. Then you get the bye. LSU at home. Sorry, LSU is not very good. I don't care what their ranking is. You close with Oklahoma and Auburn, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need to get into what they could be 2, 3, 4 weeks from now. As I always say, the show is tonight. The show is right now. And it's no disrespect to Ohio State. It's no disrespect to Indiana. It's no disrespect to Georgia or Ole Miss or Texas A&M or whomever. I think Alabama's the best team in college football, and I think Kalen DeBoer is doing as good of a coaching job as anybody in college football. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to come back. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, though, you know who's actually doing a pretty good job coaching? I actually think Steve Sarkisian, and it's because his quarterback stinks, okay? We're going to come back, talk that Kentucky-Texas game. Arch Manning is officially a problem. We cannot deny it, and I know Kentucky fans want to talk about their end of things, so we'll talk the Kentucky side. We'll talk Arch Manning. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. So couple things here. First of all, I apparently just butchered that Alabama stat. I guess it was 16-7, and then it became 23-7. It doesn't really matter. The point is Alabama's best team in college football. That's all that matters. By the way, Paul says he is going to go ahead and download my Fox Sports Radio podcast. I appreciate you, Paul, Fox Sports Radio, pinned at the top of the screen. If you want more college football talk after this show, we appreciate it. This is a pretty funny comment, actually. Harry James Taylor says, Aaron, does Texas have a Stoops problem? We'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, though, you know who we should thank? We should thank our friends, our partners, the hotel and casino partner of the Aaron Torres pod, Circa Casino and Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so I've told you all about Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so Circa Sportsbook, great spot in Vegas, best place to watch all these games. By the way, well, I'll save some good information on Circa here for a couple days from now. I should have some updates on some things that I will be doing with them in Vegas. But also, if you don't live near Vegas, guess what? I know it's not easy to get to. Well, they have opened up a brand new sports book in Franklin, Kentucky, Mint Kentucky Downs, right on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. So if you can't get to Vegas, but you want the great Vegas hospitality, the best sports book on the East Coast to watch games, you're going to want to check out the Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. It is a replica sports book. And in this world where there's a million games going on, where you need different apps and different this, and this game's Peacock only, and this game's only streaming, no. All you got to do is go to the Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. It's about 35, 40 minutes from Nashville. It's about 20, 25 minutes from Bowling Green. Best place on the East Coast to watch games. Franklin, Kentucky, Mint Kentucky Downs, the Circa Sportsbook. All right, let's keep the conversation going. And speaking of Kentucky, let's go ahead and stay in the state of Kentucky. Lexington, Kentucky, Saturday night, Kentucky hosting Texas. And I'll be honest, listen, we get stuff wrong. My picks this week were 4-1-1 overall. The one I just completely missed on was the Texas Longhorns. Okay, so I thought Texas, coming off of that win over Oklahoma, I thought they had really figured out something. And I'll say this, I thought that Kentucky under Mark Stoops was done. I thought they had quit on him. The defense hadn't been very good. Well, guess what? This game comes down to the wire as Texas beats Kentucky 16-13 final score. But here's the thing. If you watch this game, two things stood out. One, Kentucky completely outplayed Texas. And if it wasn't for some Mark Stoops' questionable play calling in overtime, Kentucky probably wins. Two, I think at this point it's indisputable. Texas has an Arch Manning problem, and I don't know where the heck they go from here because this thing is not getting better. Let's talk about this game. As I said, I thought it was going to be a blowout. Texas coming off that impressive win against Oklahoma. Let me say this. Not only was it not impressive for Texas, there's no other way to put it. Kentucky completely outplayed Texas. Now, we're not into moral victories here, and I don't think Kentucky right now you can say it's a moral victory given where this team is. But at the same time, there is no doubt that Kentucky outplayed Texas. Over 200 more yards of total offense. Cutter Boley, who I actually thought showed some signs against Georgia a few weeks ago, I thought he's actually been pretty good. He completely outplayed Arch Manning. In this game, Cutter Boley, for people who maybe didn't watch, he is the Kentucky quarterback. I think he's a redshirt freshman. Kentucky, correct me if I'm wrong, but highly rated recruit. This was basically the one guy that, this was the one trump card that Mark Stoops had over the course of the first few weeks. I felt like he wasn't playing Cutter Boley just so he could try to sell the future with Cutter Boley. But I only bring it up because he was excellent. Finished the game 31 of 39 passing, 258 yards. And let's just call a spade a spade. Kentucky was in position to win this game. Kentucky probably should have won this game. 137 yards rushing. Couple questionable calls late, a couple questionable spots. But even in overtime, Kentucky has the chance to win. Now, Kentucky does not win because Mark Stoops, listen, not great with clock management, not great with game decision-making, and the play calling in overtime was just abysmal. I know Mark Stoops isn't the offensive coordinator. I know he doesn't call plays offensively, but at the same time, at some point you got to overrule your OC, right? If it is the OC, you got to overrule them. But in overtime, instead of kicking the field goal certainly they're not going to kick the field goal on third down, but third down, run up the middle into the strength of Texas's defense, the defensive line and the defensive front. No gain, no yards, whatever. Then on fourth down, rather than kicking the field goal, they again go for it. They go for it, which is fine, but run into the heart of Texas's defense. They do not get the touchdown. Texas, all they have to do is kick a field goal at that point. And Texas does survive 16-13. Now, I know we have a lot of Kentucky fans watching, and Matt, if there's any Kentucky comments, we can get to them at the end. But at the same time, the story here, listen, no, Kentucky fans, there's no disrespect. The story here isn't about Kentucky. It's about that guy on the screen right there. If you're watching on YouTube, it's about Arch Manning, okay? We've defended Arch Manning. We've tried to be fair to Arch Manning. And in Arch Manning's defense, he did not put these expectations on him. But the bottom line is he is the quarterback at Texas. Texas, they have their problems, but their biggest problem right now is that their quarterback simply is not good enough. Saturday was the latest example, and we're now 7 games into his 3rd year as a college quarterback. And I'm sorry, if it's not there yet, I don't know if it's going to get there. And if it's not going to get there, I think Texas is a real problem and really has to figure out what the quarterback position looks like beyond Arch Manning. Maybe not for this season, but certainly for next one. As far as this game is concerned, a couple things. One, I mean, Arch was terrible. There's no other way to put it. 12 of 27 passing, 132 yards, okay? And this is coming off of what was probably his best performance of the year last week. But even if you actually go back and look at it, it really wasn't that good. It was just that Texas figured out the run game, and Texas's defense was awesome against Oklahoma. Last week, 21 of 27 passing, but what was it? 166 yards. That's 6 yards per completion and 1 touchdown. I mean, we're not talking about, whatever, Ty Simpson or Johnny Manziel or Cam Newton. Like, we're talking about a competent situation at quarterback. And at the same time, part of the thing about it was that, like, yes, he played well because everything else around him was clicking, right? And so that's the thing, is that last week, first of all, I had some of you like, when are you going to give Arch his props? And it's like, because he played one good game, like, listen, credit to him, won the Red River Shootout. You know, they get to wear the little bronze hat, like, congrats to you. But can I get 2 good games in a row? And the answer is apparently no. And that is where the issue is. It's 2 things. One, we are now 7 games, again, into year 3 of the Arch Manning era. He has yet to put back together back-to-back good games, okay? As a matter of fact, his bad games have been really bad. 11 of 25, 114 yards against UTEP. We know what he did against Ohio State earlier in the year. 16 of 29 against Florida. That wasn't all on him. But even if you want to argue that he hasn't been great, here's the thing, is that everything else around him is, I don't want to say it's starting to come together, okay? But let me back up and say this, is that I do think this is where the concern is the concern is a couple things. One, first of all, you're the quarterback at Texas, okay? And nobody is asking you to be great. As a matter of fact, Matt, you could pop up, I think it was Clarence Hill was the guy who said this, and I think this is the important point and the important theme of this conversation. Clarence Hill, longtime columnist, journalist in the Dallas area, said, Arch Manning doesn't have to be great or generational. Just complete a slant route and hit wide open receivers on crossing route. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Hook 'em. He's 100% right. And so my whole thing is people are like, well, it's not just Arch's fault. I get it. But isn't the sign of a good or competent quarterback the ability to raise his level of play when his teammates need him, when the run game isn't working, when the defense is giving up points, whatever? Arch is the exact opposite. Arch needs everything perfect just to look competent. And Matt, this is your 2-minute clip right here, because that is my theme of this segment. It's not that Arch needs to be great, but he's the opposite of what you need from a quarterback in the SEC. He needs everything else to be great just to look competent. To Texas's credit, the defense outside of a half has started to look very good. They were not good the first half against Florida, but you even go to the second half against Florida, they were fine. They were great against Oklahoma. They were great against Kentucky on Saturday, or at least good enough. The run game is not good right now. The O-line is not good, but part of it is the run game is not good because, to Clarence Hill's point, and it's to everybody's point, I'm not putting this on Clarence Hill, but to his point, Arch Manning can't hit wide open receivers when he has time in the pocket. And so to me, this is officially a problem. And don't sell me on he's young. He's in his 3rd year of college football. Let me just ask you a very simple question, okay? Bryce Underwood was playing high school football 8-9 months ago. Who has shown more signs that they will eventually figure it out, Bryce Underwood or Arch Manning? I would 1,000% argue that it's Bryce Underwood, not Arch Manning. By the way, Bear Bachmeier, true freshman, got to BYU in May, has BYU 7-0 and is playing great football right now. And even if you want to argue the Big 12 isn't the SEC, I don't care. 7-0, true freshman, got to BYU in May, okay? So don't tell me it's that he needs more time. And he's in his third year in the same system with the same coaching staff, okay? And he's just not good enough. And for the first time, I really do think Steve Sarkisian really has some tough decisions to make, because I think for a while, I was under the impression of two things. One, you can't force a Manning into the portal. You can't run off a Manning. I still, to a degree, believe that. But what I also believe is you can't keep going on like this. There is too much money invested in the rest of the roster. Listen, we know that there was a report that Texas's roster was close to $40 million. Even if it wasn't $40 million this year, even if it was $30 million, even if it's going to be a little bit less because of rev share next year, which I don't think it'll be, but let's play that game. It doesn't change the fact that there is too much money invested and you're too good everywhere else. At some point, you need to be good at quarterback, right? It almost reminds me of some of these NFL teams where you look at, like, say, the New York Jets. New York Jets have an all-pro, one of the best receivers on the planet, Garrett Wilson. The O-line is fine. The defense is fine. But when you don't have the right quarterback, none of it matters. And I'm certainly not saying Texas is the New York Jets of the NFL, but what I am saying is you're too good everywhere else to keep going on like this. This year, you might not have a better option on your roster, but next year you better find one. Because this year, I think you're going 8-4. I think you're going maybe 7-5. It's not going to get better, and you can't bring this guy back, and you cannot build around this guy going into 2026 because he is not good enough. Listen, let's look at the rest of the Texas schedule really quick. Texas right now is 5-2. And I know some of you are going to overreact and say, Torres, you're overreacting. They're 5-2. They're in the playoff mix. Okay, whatever. Here's my question. Look at the rest of the schedule. Texas, first of all, next week they go to Mississippi State. You mean to tell me it's a guarantee they're going to beat Mississippi State? I don't know. Tennessee struggled to win at Mississippi State earlier this year. Mississippi State probably could have, maybe should have won at Florida on Saturday. They're not a terrible football team. And if your quarterback's going 16 of 27, you're not going to get the win. Even if you beat Mississippi State. Let's look at the rest of the schedule. Vandy at home. I know it's at home. I don't know if you're beating Vandy. They're a pretty freaking good football team. That is November 1st, 2 Saturdays from now. Then you get a bye. Then you go to Georgia. You're definitely not winning at Georgia with Arch Manning at as your quarterback. You close with Texas A&M. By the way, I don't think Arkansas is guaranteed. Arkansas is moving the ball on everybody. Arkansas is putting up points on everybody. So all of a sudden, you got to score 31 points to beat Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas's defense is bad, so maybe you can do it. But the point I'm trying to make, look at the rest of the schedule. 5 games left. At Mississippi State, Vandy at home, Georgia at home, Arkansas at home, Georgia on the road, Arkansas at home, A&M on the road. You're not beating A&M the way you're playing. You're not beating Georgia on the road. You probably won't beat Vandy. And so is 8-4 good enough with the roster you've put together? Is 8-4 good enough where everywhere else on the field, you're at minimum competent, at best good enough to win a national championship? Now, again, I know it's not all on Arch, but again, let's talk about this. The O-line hasn't been good, but part of the reason the O-line hasn't been good is because everybody could just stuff the box. Because guess what? They know the quarterback cannot hit simple plays and simple passes that quarterbacks in their third year in college football should be able to hit. And so I think it's fascinating. I think this becomes one of the most interesting stories in college football going forward. I know we got a lot of hot seat stuff. Penn State needs a new head coach. By the time you listen to this, Florida and Florida State may need a new head coach. Who knows what's going on at LSU and Auburn? I get all that. But if Texas goes 8-4, Texas goes 7-5, I just don't think you can run it back. Do you go get a starting caliber quarterback in the portal? Do you go get a good quarterback, maybe not great, to compete with Arch? Do you force Arch into the portal? I know you have Diabell coming in, a 5-star quarterback. I don't think you want to start a true freshman next year in a 9-game SEC schedule. But I just keep going back to, I don't think you can run this back. I have not seen anything that makes me think you can run this back. It is a total disaster with Arch Manning. Again, 16 of 27 at Kentucky. He flat out got played by 12 of 27, excuse me, 12 of 27, forgive me. He flat out got outplayed by Cutter Boley. And so I don't know what you do if you're Texas. But again, I thought even as of 2 weeks ago, even after the Florida loss, you can't run a Manning off. You can't force him into the portal. I don't know that I feel the same this way. I don't know if I feel the same anymore at this time, because ultimately 8-4, 7-5 isn't good enough at Texas, and that just feels like where you're going. Really quick, Matt, before we get to a break, I want to talk some LSU Auburn. Any interesting comments on this game specifically, or Texas or Oklahoma or whatever? What do you want to talk about? This is actually a very funny comment. Arch needs to attend the Manning QB camp. Well, listen, I'll say this. I mean, wasn't that part of the conversation with Arch when he was in high school? All these big camps, the Elite 11, like he wasn't part of the Elite 11. And I think at the time it was like, you know, if Arch doesn't want to show up at Elite 11, because if he does, then the conversation becomes about Arch and he's bigger than Elite 11 and whatever, he doesn't have to do it, this and that. Well, guess what? All those other guys showed up at Elite 11. You know, I mentioned Bryce Underwood. I mentioned Bear Bachmeier. Like, how about Nico Iamaleava? Like, if I'm going to crush Nico like I did for 6 months after he left Tennessee, Nico was in the same class. Nico is at UCLA. They're on a 3-game win streak. I know it's the Big Ten. I know it's not the same, but Nico's doing it with way less than what Arch Manning has right now. So that was funny from CJ Preach, who says Arch needs to attend the Manning Passing Academy. Any other questions on this game? Texas wouldn't have scored without 2 good punts and Bush's help. So Bush is Kentucky's offensive coordinator, but I think it's a good point. Texas, a couple big special teams plays. By the way, the punt essentially sealed the win against Oklahoma. We don't talk about that. 23-7 was the final score there, or 23-6, I think was the final score there. And it was a punt return for a touchdown by Ryan Niblett that sealed the game. I mean, so 16-6 other than that, it's 16-6 other than that, I don't know. And then as Benjamin says, Kentucky beat Kentucky. I think he's totally right on that. Any last thoughts before we take a quick break and come back and talk LSU? Kentucky Outdoors Life, who's been a very vocal contributor to the chat here over the last couple weeks, says Mark Stoops doesn't care if we win or lose. He is still winning at the end of the day because he's getting paid all that money. I'll tell you this. We didn't have time on Friday to talk about that report that Kentucky paid $22 million for its basketball roster. I think that was the worst piece of news for Mitch Barnhart to come out, the Kentucky AD. Because I'll tell you what, if I'm Mark Stoops and I found out that the basketball teams get $22 million, guess what? You want to fire me? You're going to pay me every single dollar of this buyout. You clearly got the money somewhere. You're going to take care of me. I'm hearing, listen, I by the way, it is worth noting, I saw the Mark Stoops Virginia Tech rumor. Sorry, I just dropped my phone there, just checking for any Billy Napier news. But I saw the Mark Stoops, Virginia Tech report last week. That felt very much like Mark Stoops is trying anything he can to find a landing spot. It ain't going to happen. I'm just here to no Power 5 team is going to hire him. Power 4, whatever. I mean, maybe a mid-major does, maybe a group of 5 does. I don't know. Will he leave Kentucky for a group of 5 that's going to pay him maybe $1 million a year? Probably not. It's a disaster. And, I'll say this. I really think that was Kentucky's – I don't want to say it was Kentucky's best shot, because guess what? They still got producer Matt's Auburn Tigers on the schedule, so maybe it wasn't. But Kentucky, by the way, it doesn't get any easier. They close with Tennessee, at Auburn, Florida, at Vandy, at Louisville. All right, so we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we will talk about 2 other hot seats. I came into today thinking we were going to talk Billy Napier. We may still talk Billy Napier. We got to talk Brian Kelly. We got to talk Hugh Freeze, and then we'll wrap with the rest of a busy Saturday in college football. And then, of course, we're on Napier and Mike Norvell watch. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to Caulipuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, Caulipuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase, 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. Caulipuffs.com gets you 15% off. Caulipuffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but Caulipuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Caulipuffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So let's go ahead and keep the conversation going. I'd say final segment of the show, but we got a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover here over the final few minutes of this show. Let's go ahead and continue the conversation on 2 seats that are getting just insanely hot. I want to go ahead and talk LSU and Auburn. Let's start with the LSU Tigers. Okay, so LSU on the road on Saturday at Vandy. And I'll say this, I know that LSU, Vandy opened as a favorite. It doesn't really matter, though, because this is LSU. They're going to Vandy. Unfortunately for LSU, this game looked pretty much like every single big game that Brian Kelly has coached during his time at LSU. Final score, Vandy beats LSU 31-24. And I know LSU is 5-2, but go ahead and look at their wins. Go ahead and look at most of their wins basically since they beat Alabama in year 1 of the Brian Kelly era. I'm going to ask a simple question. Explain to me why Brian Kelly isn't essentially SEC James Franklin, does not have good wins, does not beat good teams, loses to Vandy, more losses are on the schedule. I think he's really trending towards basically, it's certainly going to be a second straight disappointing season, but Jaden Daniels 2 years ago when he won the Heisman basically bailed him out of a third straight disappointing season. I think it's a total disaster. I don't know that he's going to get fired because the buyouts are so crazy, but this is a train wreck and it is going in the wrong direction. I just think it's time to admit he's not the right guy for LSU. I just don't think he is. Now, a couple things here. Let's get into it. LSU, again, losing to Vandy, 31-24. Like, we do have to do the requisite. Vandy's awesome, and Vandy deserves credit, and Clark Lee is that dude. Great program builder. He came in, he's a Vandy alum, and, he said all the right things about this is my dream job, and I want to build that Vandy into a title contender, and all that stuff sounds great in a press conference, but it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it. But I'll take it a step further. Even last year, after Vandy beat Alabama, I thought they were kind of overrated. I mean, you go back and look at Vandy's wins. Outside of the Alabama win, there weren't great wins on the schedule. Auburn didn't make a bowl game. Kentucky didn't make a bowl game. Couple out of conference wins, whatever. And so I bring it up because as I move forward with this Vandy story, I think they've become 100% properly rated as a legitimate top 15 team and a legitimate college football playoff contender. Listen, the Pavia stuff, I thought another one, Diego Pavia, I thought was a little bit overrated last year. This year, dude, I mean, he is just such a good college quarterback, makes all the right decisions, knows when to run, knows when to throw. This guy takes a million big hits, get back up every single time. Listen, I don't know that you can say right now like he's a Heisman Trophy favorite or contender. Ty Simpson's really good. There's some other guys out there that are really good. But like what he does for that team, I don't think can be undersold. And I think we do have to give Vanderbilt credit. At the same time, it is Vanderbilt and it is LSU, and there is never going to be a good time for LSU to lose to Vandy. And I'll just say it, like this is trending towards another disastrous season for Brian Kelly and for the LSU Tigers, okay? And I know people have said it, and I know people have talked about it, and I know I've discussed it here on this show. I have largely actually been a Brian Kelly supporter, okay? So I've told the story a million times, but when I was at UConn, there was Big East football. Brian Kelly comes to Cincinnati. Cincinnati was good under Mark D'Antonio. He takes him to another stratosphere, goes to Notre Dame, and has a great deal of success, okay? And so I thought it would work at LSU. I wasn't somebody that said because he does the fake accent, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, it is just abundantly obvious that he is not the guy, okay? First of all, I said it a minute ago. You go back, best win, season 1 against Alabama. And by the way, that was a game at home in overtime. Basically, Jaden Daniels hits Mason Taylor for that 2-point conversion. Basically, if that ball falls flat, they lose that game. And I think everything that we're discussing, like that one play, I think set Brian Kelly up for the next 2 or 3 years. But year 2, Jaden Daniels kept them from being a 7-5 football team, right? Kept them from being a 7-5 football team. They go 9-3, and it's only because Jaden Daniels literally put up one of the best statistical seasons any quarterback has in the history of football. Last year, they go 8-4. This year, they are 5-2, and I know what people will say. Well, they're 5-2. Their only 2 losses are to teams in the top 15. Well, first of all, I'm old enough to remember a day when LSU was defined by who they beat, not who they lost to. And to take it a step further, there is never a right time for LSU to lose to Vandy or Ole Miss. I don't care if both teams are in the midst of the best seasons in program history, which they very well might be. It's LS freaking U. Home of Justin Jefferson, home of Jamar Chase, home of Malik Neighbors, home of Jaden Daniels, home of Joe Burrow. I could go on and on. They should never look like this. They should never be losing to, they should never be, they're one of the few teams. Like, I think even in this 12-team playoff era, even in this era of parity, I don't care. This is not a team that should be going 8-4, and that's exactly where they're trending. I think the other frustrating part, Brian Kelly after the game. Again, you just lost to Vandy. You're 5-2. You lost to the 2 best teams on your schedule. Here's the other thing. Like, you're 5-2. You lost to the 2 best teams on your schedule. Who have you beaten at this point? Okay, Clemson looked good in the moment. They're 3-4 right now. Just lost on Saturday to SMU. I know Cade Klubnik didn't play. It's not like Cade Klubnik's been playing unbelievable all season long. You lose to Florida, 3-4. You lose to South Carolina, 3-4. No great wins. You've lost to the only 2 teams on the schedule with a pulse. And oh, by the way, Brian Kelly after the game. Matt, you can go ahead and play Brian Kelly talking about this loss after the game.
The timeout I didn't have a particular problem with. It was making sure we had the right personnel in for the call, which we did, and consequently had the touchdown call back after the procedure penalty. We got to punch it in on 1st and goal from the 1. I mean, we'll look at that on film, but again, I think overall that's the frustrating part of where we are offensively is not scoring touchdowns but kicking field goals.
That was Brian Kelly with no real explanation for what happened on Saturday. And then to take it a step further, Brian Cauble, I believe is how you pronounce his name, also referenced another thing that Brian Kelly said in the press conference. We have to play smarter and cleaner. Let me say this. 1, that is frustrating as an LSU fan. And you know why? It's because that's basically what Brian Kelly says after every loss for the last 4 seasons. Every single loss, the press conference sounds the same. We have to execute better. We have to do this better. We have to do that better. At some point, listen, at least there was the fake table slam after the USC game last year. It's like LSU fans are tired of hearing the same crap over and over. And let me take it a step further. I don't think it's about execution. I think Vandy was just the better team than you guys were on Saturday. And so to me, that is a problem in and of itself. Is you look at LSU through the years, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, certainly Nick Saban. Listen, they lost games here and there, but it was usually only because of really abysmal coaching or, Coach O towards the end, some really bad coaching. Les Miles in the middle, some really bad coaching, whatever. Or you're just playing other really good teams. Nick Saban's Alabama teams, whatever. But I only bring it up because you know why you never lost? Because the teams around you were as good or better. And I get it. I know it's a 12-team playoff year. I know it's a transfer portal year. I know rosters are thinner than they've ever been before. But there's never an excuse for Vandy to be as good, as talented, if not more talented than LSU. There's no reason for Ole Miss to be as good, as talented, more talented than LSU. And to take it a step further, I don't know what LSU does with Brian Kelly. Now, he, like everybody else, is one of these coaches that has this crazy buyout, okay? It's like 60 something million. It doesn't really matter. I think it's like 68 million if he were fired today. And I'll be honest, like I think you could look at it one of two ways. One, I think when James Franklin gets fired with 60 million on his, on the books, or I guess it was 48, but you get the point. I don't think we can assume that any buyout is off the table. The counter to that is I'm told basically LSU doesn't have the money. LSU does not have the money to buy out Brian Kelly right now, but here's the counter to that. I don't know what you do or what you sell to make it seem like it's going to be better if you bring him back. Like I said, they're trending towards another 8-win season, maybe 7-win season. They have Texas A&M at home on Saturday. I know LSU doesn't lose at home in the SEC. Texas A&M is the better team. I'm just here to tell you, even if you win that one, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, the final 4 games of the season, you're going 0-2 in those games because your offense stinks, okay? And I think what's interesting about Brian Kelly is even if you don't fire him, you've given him everything that you need to succeed. By the way, our Torres on LSU page, we just started it, have hit over 200 subscribers. Make sure you're following. If you're on Twitter, Torres on LSU, all of our late-breaking coverage, because there is a lot of LSU talk right now. We just started the page. We're over 200 subscribers. Torres on LSU. I don't know what you do with Brian Kelly, because here's the thing. It's one thing if you're having a bad season. The problem is you're having really a third straight disappointing season, and every single offseason, you've spent a lot of money to try to fix the issues. 2 off seasons ago, 2 off seasons ago, your defense was terrible. You went out and hired Blake Baker, and at the time, you made him the highest paid defensive coordinator. Last year, you said the talent wasn't good enough. You needed to raise NIL money. I know for a fact they raised a crap ton of NIL money, and this was supposed to be the year. It's almost like what we talked about with James Franklin before he got fired. For years, you've been telling us what you don't have, what everybody else has, what you need. Well, you got all the money to pay a defensive coordinator. You got all the money to buy the roster that you want, and it's still not good enough. You're still getting beat up by Vandy. You're still losing to Ole Miss in a game that wasn't as close as the final score indicated because Ole Miss fumbled on the goal line, and it should have been a 2-score game. So I could go on and on. I just don't know what LSU does. By the way, Brian Kelly already gave back $1 million of his salary last year to help with NIL. And so that to me is what's fascinating. I think there's a couple other variables as well. One, I don't think they have the money to buy him out. 2, Scott Woodward, who made the hire. I mean, Scott Woodward was waiting his whole life to hire a football coach at LSU. Baton Rouge native, was at Texas A&M, hired Jimbo Fisher. And by the way, Scott Woodward has sort of made some other really good hires. Kim Mulkey kind of worked out on the basketball side, women's basketball side. Jay Johnson won a national title in baseball. But you're defined at LSU by what you do in football, and Brian Kelly just doesn't feel like the right fit. He doesn't feel like the right fit. He's never really felt like the right fit. I didn't know that it would matter, but I'm just absolutely fascinated. And I will say this, I'll wrap because I want to talk a little Hugh Freeze and Auburn. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Brian Kelly retires after this year. You know, I said this on my Fox Sports radio show. The podcast, by the way, is pinned to the top of the page here. Make sure you download it as well. I watched that SEC Netflix documentary, and I'll just say this, like, Brian Kelly doesn't really look like he's having fun. Players don't I can't imagine it's fun to play for Brian Kelly. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he just says, you know what, this ain't working. I'm not staying, whatever. We'll see what happens at the end of the year, but it's just time to admit it. Brian Kelly is not the answer at LSU. He's never going to be the answer at LSU. I don't know where LSU goes from here. Let's stay on the emerging hot seats in the SEC. It's crazy. You know, we talked about Sam Pittman all offseason. We talked about Billy Napier. One name that I thought, frankly, I didn't really think was on the hot seat. I thought it was a lot of bluster. It was a lot of this. It was a lot of that. That man right there, Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. Okay, so Auburn on Saturday. Back at home after the fiasco. I've defended Auburn really throughout this stretch. You played 2 really good teams on the road, Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Those 2 teams are now a combined, 12-1 on the season. I guess it would be 11-1. Is that right? They played 7 games. So 7-0, 6-1, 13-1 on the season. Defended them when that happened. Defended Auburn last week with the referees. There is no defending what happened Saturday on the Plains. I know Missouri's a top 20 team, but you are the Auburn Tigers coming off back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. This was supposed to be the year we started to see changes at Auburn. Instead, final score 23-17 in double overtime. I think it's officially time about Hugh Freeze. I've defended him. But everything lined up for him. Everything sort of kind of came down to this season. And it's not only bad. This is one like, it's almost like what we just talked about with LSU. I don't see it getting better. As far as this game is concerned, I mean, it was the quintessential Auburn game. If you've been watching Auburn this year, it was the most Matt, just give me a thumbs up. Was it the most predictable Auburn result in the history of Auburn football? Yes, Matt is giving me a thumbs up behind the scenes while he proudly wears his Auburn hat. So predictable. Opening drive, scripted. You score. But even when you get into the red zone, you still are struggling to find a way to put the ball in the red zone, okay? But most predictable. Opening drive, scripted. Find the red zone. Everybody's feeling good. You go up 7-0. But you can't capitalize on it. You can't make enough plays. Even when they went up at various points in that game, I'll be honest, there was never a moment where I felt like they were going to win the game. I'm like, oh, they're going to find a way to lose this game, and that's exactly what they did. By the way, this is just a side tangent, but the first overtime when Missouri missed the field goal and Eli Drinkwitz thought they hit it and he's running on the field to celebrate, that was peak bad SEC football. I said it on my Fox Sports radio show. I was like, pick the best game that you have seen in college football this year. Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, whatever you think was the best game that you've seen. This was the exact opposite. It was just terrible. It was unwatchable. It was awful. There was bad penalties. It was this, it was that, but it results in an Auburn loss. A couple things here. One, I'm not going to put this all on Hugh Freeze's feet. Because I will say this. I tweeted it out, Matt. I didn't send it to you, but I tweeted it out. Jackson Arnold has to be the worst decision maker that I've ever seen in college football, which is honestly kind of saying something because I watched DJ Uiagalelei for 5 years. Jackson Arnold is terrible, okay? And I was a Jackson Arnold defender. There is a clip of me on social media calling myself a Jackson Arnold truther. I believe that last year the O-line was so bad, the injuries were so bad at wide receiver that no one could have succeeded. But I don't know if he's so gun-shy because of what happened last year, but somehow he's actually even worse this year. Terrible decision maker with the ball. I think it's fitting that the final play of the game, 4th down, you can't take a sack. He essentially takes a sack. I mean, he gets dragged to the ground, throws it up. Offensive lineman catches it and runs for a yard or two. But I know people are going to say the O-line stinks. Part of the reason the O-line stinks is because the quarterback does not know when to get rid of the football. By the way, great stat from producer Matt. He says 3 different Auburn games have ended on a Jackson Arnold sack. He is the worst decision maker I've ever seen at quarterback. And I will say this. I actually think Hugh Freeze's biggest mistake is not play calling. I think it's at some point you have to go to another quarterback. I understand. You spent a lot of money on this guy. I understand last year you played quarterback dominoes with Peyton Thorne and Hank Brown and whoever, and it never really worked out. I don't care. You cannot keep running this guy back out. I don't care how bad Ashton Daniels is. I don't care if Deuce Knight is ready or not. Your whole time at Auburn is basically contingent on you got to win some games at some point. And so it's going bad. It's really bad. And as a matter of fact, listen, like I said, let me even backtrack. Coming into the season, I thought the Hugh Freeze hot seat talk was a little bit overblown. Like I said, I thought the Billy Napier hot seat talk was fair. I thought the Sam Pittman hot seat talk was fair. Mike Gundy on a national scale. But I never really felt like Hugh Freeze was kind of in any kind of danger. I just kind of felt like 2 elite recruiting classes. We know the defense is going to be good. All you have to do is get competent quarterback play, competent offense, and you're going to be fine. And somehow the offense has regressed. Like Peyton Thorne at least could put the ball in the end zone sometimes. Now, he'd put the ball in the other team's hands sometimes, but he'd at least put the ball in the end zone. Instead, 3-4, 4 straight losses to open SEC play. And I'll tell you what, let's actually listen. Hugh Freeze asked if he is the right man for the job. This is after the game via Next Round Live.
Continue to be like they are. For fans, alumni, people of this program that care about this program, what would be your message to them that you and your staff are the right people to continue to lead this program?
Yeah, that's, listen, we all know what we signed up for, and I certainly know that we fit what Auburn is all about. But Auburn is also about winning football. And, we're going to come to work Monday and get our kids ready to play Arkansas. And these kids are playing their guts out. And I know that we've changed the talent level here. But at the end of the day, at some point, you have to win football games. And, I don't make those decisions, those calls. I just know that God's called me here to lead these young men through a very challenging and difficult time. And I'm not enjoying it a whole lot of that part of it. But yet, man, when you're called to have backbone and to stand and walk through and do a job that you've been asked to do, you're going to do it faithfully and do it really well, or as well as you can until that time does not exist. And I know we're close, and I know we'll get it over the hump. And I certainly, no one hurts for these incredible fans more than me and our staff. And so we're close, but I know that people are tired of hearing that, because I'm tired of saying it and I'm tired of feeling it. But I do know that anyone that looks, this stretch of games was against 4 really, really good teams that we had a chance to win all of them. And at some point, they're going to start going our way.
Well, Hugh Freeze is right. This stretch was against 4 really good teams. The issue is, at some point, you got to win some of them. I always reference the John Calipari quote. He was asked why, one time why he didn't let guys take more 3-pointers. He's like, listen, you don't have to make all of them. You just can't miss all of them. He's like, I got a lot of shot takers. I need some shot makers. And it's kind of the same with Hugh Freeze. I understand that stretch is really tough. 4 straight games, ranked teams, they're all really good. I think Georgia, Texas A&M, Oklahoma are all very much in the playoff picture. Missouri is too. I don't know if they'll end the season there. But at some point, you got to win some of these games. And the stats that have come out after this game, I think, are truly shocking even to me. First of all, Matt, you could pop up the Justin Hawkinson tweet first, or Hawkinson. I always say his name wrong. Great guy, though. Met him at the Final Four. These are Hugh Freeze's stats. Men lie, women lie, numbers, in the most cases don't lie. Hugh Freeze right now at Auburn, 14-18 overall, 5-15 in SEC play, 1-12 against ranked teams, 1-12 in games decided by 10 points or less. This is basically Scott Frost type stuff here. After another frustrating loss, now what? At the end of the day, at some point, you have to win games. And then Justin Ferguson with a very interesting tweet as well, saying Auburn guaranteed to not finish with a winning record in conference play for the 5th straight season. You'd have to go back from 1944 to 1952 to find a streak like that. So we were talking about a 70-year streak of futility. Now, it's not all on Hugh Freeze, and I think it is worth noting he made it a point to reference in that press conference, we've upgraded the talent level. But again, and again, this is why I defended him, because I'm like, 2 great recruiting classes. You have NFL bodies everywhere. Even if you aren't very good, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt going into next season. But at some point, you do have to win games. They're 0-4 in SEC play. And like all these teams in the SEC, I don't think it really gets much easier. You're 3-4 overall, 0-4 in SEC play. I'm telling you right now, you go to Arkansas next week, Arkansas is moving the ball on everybody. Arkansas is putting up points on everybody. And if all Arkansas has to do is score 21 points next week and they're beating you, score 17 points and they're beating you, even if their defense stinks, you can't move the ball. I don't think you're beating Arkansas on the road next week. You got Vandy on the road. You got Alabama at home. And this was a season where 5-7, 6-6 was not good enough. Well, you're already 4-4. You're already 0-4 in the SEC. 5th straight year where you will not finish with a winning record in the SEC. And I'm not saying it will happen, but I think it's absolutely in play that Auburn could move on from Hugh Freeze after this year. And you know what's crazy about it? Like, a lot of these ADs are coy. Scott Strickland, as we record here, has not fired Billy Napier yet. He's been very quiet about things. I think a lot of other ADs have been supportive publicly. Did you see what John Cohen, the Auburn AD, said after Auburn's loss last week against, I guess it was Georgia? This was a wild quote, okay? I referenced this in passing the other day, but John Cohen, Auburn's AD, was asked about if Hugh Freeze was the right man for the job or if he expected to make a move and get rid of Hugh Freeze. Asked if he was expected to get rid, or if he was planning on getting rid of Hugh Freeze after the season. This is what he said. I don't know if I'm going to walk outside and my car is going to start or not. I think it is. I have expectations that it will, but if my car doesn't start up enough, then I will evaluate that and make decisions about my car. But that's not my expectation at this point about our football program. So basically, for people who do not understand that analogy, what he's saying is this: I don't expect to fire my head coach, but I don't expect to go out to my car and it doesn't start. And if it doesn't start, I got to make some alternative plans. And right now, he has basically thrown down the gauntlet. Like, it is not out of the realm of possibility that I fire my head coach. And so to me, listen, if I'm handicapping this, I think he might get fired. Like, I didn't think it a week ago. I don't even think I thought it a week ago. I did think this Missouri game was kind of a touchstone game. I know they're a top 20 team, but you got to win that at home. Well, now you're 4-4. You still have Bama. I know, Jordan Hare has been a house of horrors for Bama, but you still have Bama. You're going to Vandy. You ain't beating Vandy the way Vandy's playing. And I'm telling you, I don't think you're beating Arkansas the way that Arkansas is playing. You still have Kentucky. Maybe you beat them. You still have Mercer. You better beat them. But is 5-7 in year 3 good enough? No. Is 5-7 in year 3? And here's the other thing. You don't have your quarterback of the future. Well, you might have your quarterback of the future on your roster in Deuce Knight, but he certainly ain't playing right now. And then beyond that, I think the other thing is, given everything, you've accumulated all this talent. Is it going to stay in this program after this year? There's already talk about Cam Coleman, the big wide receiver who is trending to be like a top 10 pick in the 2027 NFL draft. So 2 NFL drafts from now. He ain't staying if the quarterback play is like this. Some of those defensive guys, obviously you're going to lose Keldrick Falk after this season, but are those defensive guys going to stay? Amaris Williams, who made a filthy play on Saturday, is he going to stay? Jared Smith. I mean, there's just DeMarcus Riddick. There's so much talent on this roster. But as Hugh Freeze said it himself, at some point, the roster, the wins have to speak for themselves. It's really bad at Auburn. This was one. I know I've said it 2 or 3 times, so I'll stop saying it. I didn't think this was in the cards. I really didn't. I also didn't think Auburn was going to start 0-4 in SEC play. Now I think it's very much in play. And I'll say this. I don't know if we have any Arkansas fans hanging out in the chat today. I think Arkansas is beating them on Saturday. I really do. I really think Arkansas is beating them on Saturday. Matt, before we switch gears to Ole Miss, let's get to Don's comment on the defense, because I think this is a great comment. And when we clip this off, Matt, you can include this in the clip as well. Don brings up a great point. Auburn is wasting probably the best defense in the SEC. If they fire Freeze and win 3 or 4 games with Durkin, he could get the job full-time. It's funny. I'll tell you this. During the day on Saturday, I got a call from somebody who I think was trying to pitch me on a candidate for the Auburn job. Not John Summerall, by the way, who should be the lead candidate, but somebody was like, who'd be a good candidate? This guy. And I'm like, no, he wouldn't be. I'll tell you after the show, Matt, you'll get a kick out of it. But I said to him, if anything, I think they move off Freeze and try to give DJ Durkin the head coaching job for a couple games here. And I think that's the other interesting thing too. I referenced the fact of you risk losing players to the portal. If you're DJ Durkin, are you coming back to this situation in 2026? Like, let's just say John Cohen today comes out and says, we're not firing our coach. He's going to be with us in 2026. Everybody buckle up. You think DJ Durkin's coming back? You think DJ Durkin's going to come back to deal with this? I don't care how much you pay me. I'm going somewhere else. Somebody's going to need a defensive coordinator after this year that's pretty good. Maybe the new Penn State coach. Maybe the new, Florida hires Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin and DJ Durkin have worked together before. So this is an important point. They're wasting the best defense. That defense is so good, man. And by the way, part of it does speak to how well Hugh Freeze is recruited. Like all of those guys, none of the marquee players essentially were in the program when he got there. And you watch the Auburn games, And every single guy is a guy that I remember talking about when he committed. Kyan Lee, I remember he flipped the year that Hugh Freeze got the job, and it was a big flip. I think it was from Ohio State. Jared Smith last year, number 1 player in the state of Alabama. Cam Coleman flipped from Texas A&M. These were incredible recruiting wins in the moment. By the way, Demarcus Riddick flipped from Georgia and Alabama. He was committed to Georgia and Alabama at one point. So these were great recruiting wins, but at some point it has to translate to the field. And Don says it well. They're wasting the best defense in the SEC. It is absolutely unbelievable. All right. Let's very quickly rip through some other stuff. I'm probably going to be short on this because I plan on having to come back live at some point today and talk Billy Napier. By the way, let me even, and Matt, I didn't prepare you for this, so definitely, it is what it is. I actually want to spend, if Billy Napier does not get fired on Saturday, let me say this, whether he does or he doesn't, I actually thought he handled Saturday with so much class, and I don't want to give him too much credit because if we have Florida fans in the chat, they're going to get mad. Why are you being nice to this guy? Florida does beat Mississippi State. It was, by the way, the classic Napier game. Got up early, or they fell down early on a fluke play. Let him in the game. Too many penalties, too many miscues, whatever. But after the game, he was asked about the job, and he seemed in his answer, it seemed like he felt like it was his last job. But he did say all the right things. I'm so happy for my players. They're great kids. And he was asked, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to go celebrate an SEC win. I'm going to have a good meal. I'm going to watch some football tonight. Seems like a good guy. And who knows? Maybe he is the head coach come Monday. I don't think he will be. Some of you will have listened to this maybe either after a decision has or has not been made. I thought he handled himself well. He seems like a great guy, but he has nobody to blame but himself. If he had just hired an OC last offseason, I still think he's probably the head coach. And I think Florida's probably sitting right now at, what are they, 3-4? I also was thinking about this, like the USF loss just killed them. Because, if you beat USF, you're now 4-3. And, listen, you got Kentucky on the back half. You got Tennessee at home, a team you've had success against in the Swamp. Florida State's kind of a mess. We'll get to Florida State in a minute. Like, you could talk yourself very easily into 8-4, 9-3 if you had just beaten USF. So if the Billy Napier eulogy is written this weekend, we'll come back and discuss it. And maybe it'll happen before we get off air here. But by the way, make sure you're turning on the notifications because we will go back live if anything happens with Billy Napier. But yeah, man, I actually do feel bad. I actually do feel bad. I thought he actually just totally handled himself with nothing but class on the evening on Saturday. Really quickly, a couple other results. Listen, I'm not going to spend too much time on these again because I plan on doing Billy Napier content in the day on Sunday. Georgia beats Ole Miss. Listen, I was critical of Georgia last week with the SEC refereeing and stuff. Incredible comeback for Georgia. Ole Miss, I thought they were going to get the win. Georgia rallies. We all know they were down 35-26, 3 straight scoring possessions. Ole Miss scores on the first 5 possessions of the game. Georgia holds them scoreless on the last 3 possessions of the game. Great win for Georgia. I think 2 quick things. One, if Georgia loses this game, I think they're essentially out of the SEC title mix with the way Ole Miss would have a tiebreaker over them. Alabama would have a tiebreaker over them. Alabama and Ole Miss would have a tiebreaker over them. Texas A&M is 7-0. They would have been out of the SEC title race and playing for their playoff lives, but they get the win. I thought last week was a little pseudo-bogus. This one was not. Ole Miss, crushing loss. Let me even take it in another direction. It's crushing because of this. Lane Kiffin, whenever the Florida job opens, will be the number 1 candidate at Florida. And I think this is a job that he potentially probably takes. And I just bring it up because guess what? If he wins this game, you're 7-0 with a very manageable schedule on the back half. You're going to the college football playoff. Now, I still think they probably find a way in Final 5 at Oklahoma this weekend, South Carolina at home, Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State. I don't think they're going 9-3. If you go 10-2, you're probably still making the playoff. But you win that game, you're probably making your first trip to Atlanta for an SEC championship game. You're going to the playoff. Just a crushing loss. A couple other quick ones. Notre Dame gets a win over USC. Don't really have a ton to say here. I just want to give Notre Dame credit, man. They were a team. When they lost to Texas A&M and to Miami, we sat there and said, "Oh my goodness, they have no chance. The season's over." Well, they're now 5-2, 5 straight double-figure wins, and those Miami and Texas A&M wins keep getting better. I know Miami lost this weekend, but Miami's 5-1. They still control their own destiny with pretty much everything in the playoff picture. And then Texas A&M 7-0. I think Miami is 5-1. They've already had 2 byes, but A&M 7-0. Those losses keep getting better and better. Now Notre Dame has to win out, I think. But if Notre Dame wins out, and they should, Final 5 at Boston College, Navy, at Pitt, Syracuse, and at Stanford, I think they're going to the college football playoff because they'll be 10-2, 2 very good losses that should withstand the test of time. This was the one they had to have. This is the one they get. USC, listen, you got to win some, it's kind of what we were saying with what's his face there, with who are we just talking about? With Hugh Freeze. Like at some point, like if you're USC and you want to take the next step, you got to win these big games on the road in the Midwest. I'm not saying that it's a terrible loss. It isn't. But, last year you were 1-5 away from home. Your only road win last year was at UCLA, a stadium which is closer to your campus than UCLA. This year, your only road win so far is at Purdue. I'm not, ready to tear down Lincoln Riley, but at some point you got to win some of these games that matter. So USC loses, Notre Dame wins, they move on. Next couple games, Miami and Texas Tech both lost. I don't really have much here. Miami, I thought it was a little rush to judgment to just be like, oh, here we go again with Miami losing. I get it. Counter is Louisville's really good. 5-1. Jeff Brom is a beast. Jeff Brom is the best coach in college football that nobody realizes is truly elite. By the way, Louisville fans, I know you do already, but thank the heavens every single night that this guy is a Louisville alum and this is his dream job and this is where he wants to be, because he should be the number 1 candidate at Penn State. He should be the number 1 candidate at Florida, and this dude ain't going anywhere. Congrats to Louisville. Louisville now is very much in the playoff mix, very much in the ACC title mix. I'm not yet worried about Miami, but this is the issue with Miami. They always lose a couple games that they shouldn't. For people who forget last year, they were I think they were 9-0 at one point, lost 2 of their final 3 at Georgia Tech, at Syracuse, got knocked out of the playoff. This year they still have at SMU, at Virginia Tech. NC State's kind of an interesting team. Pitt is pretty good at 5-2 overall. So they're not out of the woods yet. And, again, I know I said they kind of control their own destiny. If they're 11-1, they're going to go to the college football playoff. But I'll say this, 3 undefeated teams in the ACC right now. Conceivably, Miami does have to win out to feel really good about making the playoff at either 11-1 or 12-1. No, who's not good in the ACC? Florida State. Florida State loses again. For people who did not stay up until 2 a.m. Eastern, it was about 2:20 Eastern, and I know this because I hosted Fox Sports Radio until 2 a.m. Eastern. This game was still going on. Florida State falls at Stanford. Now, their 4th straight loss, and they were 1-8 in the ACC last year, 0-4 this year, 0-4 in the ACC. First of all, very controversial finish. There was a play at the goal line that would have essentially tied the game. Stanford wins by 7. That would have been a touchdown. Extra point pending would have tied things up. It's called non-touchdown on the field. Apparently, Stanford is the only school in America that doesn't have pylon cams. There was no camera on the goal line. So basically, everybody, upon further review, thought it was a touchdown, but there wasn't enough video evidence to overturn it. Florida State now 3-4, 0-4 in the ACC. This might be a good midweek conversation, but I'll say this. Pete Nakos put out a very cryptic tweet on Sunday morning. I'll just read it verbatim here. Oh, boy. All right. Graham Hall, by the way, from Swamp 24/7 says there is a meeting amongst Florida coaches at 1 p.m. Eastern time today. I don't think that's something that normally gets reported on a Sunday, so we'll keep you updated on that. We will come back and go live if and when Billy Napier, if a move is made. But back to Florida State for a second. Pete Nakos put out a report. Let me see here. This was on Sunday morning. quote, Florida decision makers are holding informal phone calls this morning to discuss the future under Mike Norvell. Sources tell Pete Nakos buyout $54 million, 1-11 in ACC play during the last 2 seasons. All right. I'll tell you what, by the way, Texas Tech loses, BYU wins. The Big 12 is awesome, but we're going to go ahead and get out of here because I think by about 1:30 Eastern time, I could be coming back to be discussing Billy Napier. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media. Crowd today was awesome. Thank you guys for your support. Follow on social media, Aaron_Torres on Twitter, Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram. By the way, I know we have a little bit of an older crowd, but if you're on TikTok, Aaron Torres Pod on TikTok, we appreciate your support there as well, as we're close to 2,000 followers on TikTok. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Could be a busy Sunday. Billy Napier, I don't know if I reported it, but I heard from multiple people that people in the building are expecting today to be the day for Billy Napier. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, UF Ed. Unblock me, bro. Could potentially be back. Florida, Billy Napier, maybe Mike Norvell. Maybe we'll just be basically streaming live all day until the end of time. Maybe Mark Stoops gets fired today. Maybe Billy Napier. Let's just throw Hugh Freeze in the mix. If we could just stagger them, though, that would be great. I'm out for now. Thank you for listening.